long before cities, before machines, before written words, there was the Stone Age. It was a world raw and untamed, where nature ruled with cold winters, violent storms, and predators that could end a human life in a single moment. Imagine walking barefoot on uneven ground, your only clothing the skins of animals you had to hunt yourself. Imagine waking every day not knowing if you would find food, or if you might become food for something else. This was the daily reality for the first humans. The Stone Age spanned tens of thousands of years, beginning more than 2.5 million years ago, and stretching until the discovery of farming about 10,000 years ago. It was the longest chapter of human history, but also the hardest to survive. Humans had no steel, no advanced medicine, no electricity, and no permanent shelter. What they had instead was something far more powerful: adaptability, cooperation, and ingenuity. The earth itself was a harsh teacher. During much of the Stone Age, ice covered vast parts of the northern world. Colossal glaciers carved valleys and shaped rivers, while tundra and steppe stretched endlessly. In these frozen landscapes, enormous animals thrived. Woolly mammoths with their sweeping tusks, woolly rhinoceroses armored in thick hides, and saber-toothed cats with fangs as long as a man's hand. Even in warmer regions, dangers lurked. Giant cave bears guarded their dens, lions prowled the grasslands, and packs of wolves followed human tribes, waiting for weakness. For early humans, survival was not guaranteed. They lived at the mercy of the environment. A sudden storm, a bad hunting season, or an outbreak of illness could wipe out an entire group. Yet, despite all these challenges, they endured. They did not simply vanish into the jaws of predators or the cold silence of winter. Instead, they learned. They adapted. They found ways to bend nature's rules just enough to carve out a place for themselves in the world. Humans were not the strongest creatures in the Stone Age. Compared to the beasts that shared their world, they were small, slow, and weak. A single cave lion outweighed a man several times over. A mammoth could crush a hunter with one swing of its tusks. Even wolves, working in packs, were faster and more coordinated hunters. Humans had no sharp claws, no powerful jaws, and no natural armor. What they did have was a remarkable brain. While their bodies were fragile, their minds were endlessly inventive. They could plan, imagine, and prepare. They could remember where food was found and predict where animals might migrate. More importantly, they could work together. This combination, intelligence and cooperation, became their greatest survival strategy. The earliest humans did not have houses as we know them. Instead, they sought shelter in caves, beneath rock overhangs, or in simple structures made from branches and leaves. In the coldest times, they used the bones of mammoths and other animals to build frameworks for huts, covering them with hides for insulation. These makeshift homes were fragile, but they offered some protection from wind, rain, and predators. Fire transformed these shelters into true homes. A cave with a fire burning at its heart was not just a refuge from cold nights. It was a fortress of warmth, light, and security. But controlling fire was not simple. Early humans may have first stolen flames from natural wildfires, carrying smoldering embers from one place to another. Over time, they learned to create fire on their own, striking stones together to produce sparks, or rubbing sticks until they ignited. Within their shelters, humans gathered at night. Parents taught children, elders told stories, and hunters planned the next day's challenges. These moments of unity around fire were more than practical. They shaped the beginnings of culture, of shared identity, and of hope. Survival in the Stone Age revolved around one central struggle: finding food. Humans were hunter-gatherers, which meant they relied on two main strategies: chasing animals and collecting plants. Hunting was dangerous, but it brought in precious meat, fat, and hides. Early weapons were simple: sharpened sticks, stones tied to wooden shafts, and eventually flint-tipped spears. Hunting required teamwork. A single man with a spear could not bring down a mammoth, but a coordinated group of hunters, working together to drive an animal into a trap or toward hidden spearmen, had a chance. Not every hunt was successful. Some days ended with injuries or death. Other days, the tribe would return empty-handed, stomachs aching with hunger. That is why gathering was just as important. Women, children, and elders searched for berries, nuts, roots, and edible leaves. This knowledge of plants was crucial. Eating the wrong berry could mean poison, while the right root could keep a tribe alive through a lean winter. Over generations, humans learned the secrets of the natural world, storing wisdom in memory and story. One human alone could not survive the Stone Age, but together, humans thrived. Community was survival. Tribes often consisted of several families living together. Roles were divided. Some hunted, some gathered, some prepared hides, and some kept the fires alive. Elders taught, children learned, and adults shared responsibilities. If a hunter was injured, others provided food until he healed. If a mother could not feed her child, another woman might nurse it. This sharing was not just kindness, it was necessity. Selfishness could doom an entire tribe. Generosity, on the other hand, strengthened bonds and ensured survival. Humans developed an instinct for cooperation that went beyond blood ties. They learned that survival depended on trust, communication, and loyalty. Nature was often the deadliest enemy. Winters were brutal, with freezing winds and heavy snows. Summers brought heat, storms, and sometimes drought. In some regions, flooding rivers swept away camps. In others, earthquakes shook the ground. To endure these forces, humans relied on their ability to prepare. They stored food when possible, preserved meat by drying or smoking it over fire, and crafted warm clothing from animal skins. They built shelters that could withstand storms and carried tools with them as they traveled. By planning ahead, they learned to endure the cycles of nature. Every challenge forced humans to think. Stone became knives and axes. Bones became needles and fishhooks. Hides became clothing and tents. Humans transformed the world around them into tools of survival, and with every innovation, survival became a little less uncertain. Fire meant warmth and cooked food. Spears meant safety from predators. Clothing meant protection from cold. Each invention was a step away from fragility and a step toward mastery of the environment. The Stone Age was long and brutal, but it was also the training ground of humanity. In those early millennia, humans developed the traits that would carry them through the ages: creativity, cooperation, and resilience. The story of survival in the Stone Age cannot be told without speaking of tools. For in the beginning, humans were just another vulnerable creature, weaker than lions, slower than horses, less powerful than bears. Yet with tools, they changed the balance. Tools gave them an advantage that nature had not given to their bodies. The earliest tools were born not from metal, nor from complex machines, but from stone. A human crouched by a riverbank might notice that one rock, when struck against another, left behind a sharp edge. That sharp edge could cut, it could scrape, it could shape. From that moment, the Stone Age truly began. These first creations were simple flakes and cores, small pieces broken from larger stones. With these, a person could cut meat from a carcass, skin an animal, or break open bones to reach the marrow inside. That marrow, rich in fat and energy, often meant the difference between starvation and survival. But tools did not stay simple for long. Over generations, humans learned to improve their methods. They studied which rocks worked best. Flint, obsidian, and chert were especially prized. When struck at the right angle, they fractured cleanly, creating razor-sharp blades, so sharp, in fact, that even today they can rival the edge of a modern scalpel. With practice, tool-making became an art of survival. Hand axes were shaped to fit comfortably in the palm. Double-edged, they could chop wood, butcher animals, and even serve as weapons. Scrapers prepared hides, turning rough animal skins into clothing or shelter. Awls pierced holes, making it possible to bind hides together with sinew. Every tool told a story. A sharpened spearhead meant the hunt was about to begin. A scraper meant clothing was being made to prepare for the coming winter. A broken tool lying in the dirt was a reminder of a struggle, a lesson, a moment of survival etched into stone. Making tools was not only about function, it was also about teaching. A child sitting near the fire would watch as their parents chipped away at stone. The rhythm of strike after strike became familiar. Sparks flying, fragments falling, each flake shaping a tool, and each tool shaping the future of the tribe. But tools alone were not enough. They had to be used with skill. And so, humans learned to combine them with strategy. A spear tipped with stone could not kill a mammoth if thrown by one man alone. But if a group worked together, surrounding their prey, using fire, noise, and coordinated movement, the tool became deadly. In this way, stone multiplied human strength. A single person could never match the power of nature, but with tools and with unity, entire tribes could stand against the giants of their world. Beyond hunting, tools gave humans new ways to live. With cutting edges, they could carve wood into digging sticks, allowing them to pull up roots buried deep underground. They could fashion containers from bark or bone, carrying water farther than before. They could build stronger shelters, sharpen poles for defense, and craft ornaments that held meaning. Yes, even in the harshest days, tools became more than survival instruments. They became symbols of culture. An ornately shaped hand axe was more than a weapon. It was a marker of skill, of identity. Sometimes, tools were made with care, far beyond their practical use, showing that even then, humans longed for beauty, pride, and meaning. The making of tools also transformed time itself. Once humans had sharp edges, they could process food faster. They could skin an animal quickly, cut it into portions, and preserve it before it spoiled. They could dig roots in less time, craft clothing more efficiently. Each tool was a victory against hunger and against the ticking clock of survival. But as important as tools were, they also carried risk. A sharper blade could cut its owner's hand. A poorly made spear could shatter mid-hunt, leaving the hunter vulnerable. The process of making stone tools created shards sharp enough to injure. Yet humans persisted, for the reward outweighed the danger. And so, wherever archaeologists dig today, they find traces of this ancient struggle. Scattered tools, stone flakes, and broken blades. Each piece is a voice from the past, whispering how humans once fought for life with nothing but their hands and their minds. Over thousands of years, tools grew more advanced. Spears became more aerodynamic. Throwing sticks allowed hunters to strike from farther away. Eventually, bows and arrows appeared, giving humans the power to kill from a distance. The leap from stone in the hand to arrows in flight was monumental. It expanded the possibilities of hunting and defense. Fire and stone together reshaped the human story. With stone blades, humans could butcher animals. With fire, they could cook the meat, making it safer, easier to chew, and more nourishing. With stone scrapers, they could prepare hides. With fire, they could harden wooden spear tips, turning them into more durable weapons. Every invention was not just a tool. It was a partnership between humans and the world around them, taking what nature offered and bending it to human will. The process of tool-making also fostered patience, precision, and the sharing of knowledge. A toolmaker could spend hours shaping a single blade, carefully striking at the right angle to avoid ruining the stone. Younger generations sat nearby, learning not only the technique, but the discipline it required. With each lesson, humanity was carving its own path forward. And when the day's work was done, tools became the quiet guardians of the night. A spear leaned against a cave wall was more than wood and stone. It was hope that tomorrow the tribe might eat. A scraper lying beside the fire was more than a piece of flint. It was warmth and clothing for the coming frost. The first tools were humble, yet from these small beginnings, an unstoppable chain of progress was set in motion. For once humans learned that the world could be shaped, they never stopped shaping it. Fire, a flickering flame in the darkness, a force that could warm, protect, and destroy. For humans in the Stone Age, fire was more than just a tool. It was a miracle. At first, humans did not create fire. They found it. A tree struck by lightning, a wildfire racing across the plains, a volcanic eruption sending sparks and smoke into the air. In those moments, flames roared, and humans, cautious yet curious, drew near. The fire frightened them, yet it also drew them closer. Its warmth was irresistible. Its light was unlike anything else in the night. The first humans may have carried fire in simple ways: glowing embers wrapped in bark, smoldering branches carried carefully from one camp to the next. Keeping fire alive became a duty, an honor. Somewhere in the camp, someone always watched the flames, feeding them with wood, protecting them from rain, guarding against the wind. But over time, humans learned the greatest secret of all: how to create fire themselves, striking flint against stone to make sparks, rubbing dry sticks together until smoke rose. These acts were more than survival skills. They were steps toward mastery of the world. Fire gave warmth in a cold and merciless world. When the icy winds of winter howled through the valleys, when snow buried the land and froze the rivers, fire kept humans alive. Wrapped in furs, huddled around the flames, families endured nights that would otherwise have killed them. Fire gave protection. Wild animals that once stalked the edge of the camp now hesitated. A circle of fire drove back wolves. It kept bears at a distance. Even the mighty lion, king of the grasslands, would not challenge a ring of firelight. For the first time, humans could claim safety in the night. Fire gave nourishment. Raw meat was risky, filled with parasites and bacteria. But cooked meat was different. Fire made it safe, easier to chew, and easier to digest. It unlocked more energy, fueling brains and bodies alike. With fire, roots that were once bitter became edible. Nuts became softer. Plants lost their poisons. In every bite of cooked food, humans tasted survival. Fire gave light. In the black silence of night, flames illuminated the cave walls, revealing paintings of animals, hunters, and symbols of meaning. Families gathered close, their faces glowing red and gold, their voices rising in stories, songs, laughter. Fire lengthened the day, pushing back the night, giving humans more time to think, to plan, to dream. And fire gave strength to tools. Spears hardened in flames became stronger. Pottery baked in coals became durable. Eventually, fire would melt stone into metal. But even long before that, it transformed the objects humans made. Fire also created community. It was more than warmth, more than cooking. Around the fire, humans became truly human. Hunters shared tales of the day. Elders spoke of old times. Parents soothed children with stories of courage and warning. The fire was a teacher, a storyteller, a guardian. Every tribe had its firekeeper, someone entrusted to keep the flame alive through the night. When the wood burned low, they added more. When the sparks threatened to fade, they blew gently, coaxing them back to life. In their hands rested the hope of everyone, for without fire, the cold and the dark would return. Sometimes, fire was dangerous, too much of it, and it devoured everything. Grasslands could burn for miles. Forests could vanish in flames. Even camps themselves could be destroyed if fire escaped control. But humans learned to respect it, to contain it, to guard it with care. Imagine the sound of crackling wood echoing off cave walls, the shadows of humans dancing on the stone as flames flickered, the smell of smoke clinging to hair and skin, the taste of roasted meat after days of hunger. Fire was not just survival. It was life itself. And so, fire became sacred. Many tribes saw it as a gift from the gods or from the spirits of the animals they hunted. They may have believed the flames carried voices, or that the smoke rose to the sky as messages. Whatever their beliefs, they treated fire with reverence. In some caves, archaeologists have found ashes and burned bones deep within. Proof that fires burned there for generations, for hundreds, even thousands of years. Humans returned to the same places, rekindling flames in the same hearths. The fire was eternal, passed from one generation to the next. Think of a cold night, a mother wrapping her child in furs, pulling them close to the fire's glow, a hunter warming his hands after hours in the freezing dark, an elder telling of a hunt from long ago, sparks rising as though carrying the story to the stars. This was the power of fire. It gave humans the ability to push back against nature. For the first time, they were not entirely at its mercy. With fire, they could choose where to settle. With fire, they could endure climates that once would have killed them. Fire expanded the world of humanity. It gave them new lands to explore, new opportunities to seize. And so, fire became the heart of every camp. When a tribe moved, they carried it with them. When they stopped, they built a hearth at once. The flame was always at the center, with people gathered close. Fire was survival. Fire was community. Fire was hope. In the dance of flames, humans found something else too, imagination. Looking into the fire, their minds wandered. They dreamed of hunts to come, of animals to chase, of spirits to honor. Fire sparked not only wood, but the human mind. In the end, it was not strength alone that kept humans alive, nor speed, nor claws, nor fangs. It was their ability to take what nature gave and transform it. Fire was not tamed easily, but once tamed, it became humanity's greatest ally. The glow of fire carried them through the Stone Age, lighting their nights, warming their winters, feeding their bodies, and uniting their tribes. Wherever humans went, fire followed. And wherever fire burned, so too did the story of survival. Every morning in the Stone Age began with a question: will we survive today? The tribe rose with the sun, faces cold from the night air, stomachs already empty. The fire, carefully tended through the night, was stirred back to life with dry wood and brush. Its warmth pushed away the chill, but only food could silence the ache of hunger. Survival meant movement. For humans of the Stone Age, life was nomadic. They did not stay in one place for long. When food ran scarce, or when the seasons shifted, they packed their belongings, simple baskets, skins, tools, and spears, and moved on. They followed the rhythms of the land, the migrations of animals, the ripening of plants, the flow of rivers. Hunting was at the center of life, but it was never simple. The prey was often larger, stronger, and faster than the hunters themselves. A deer could vanish into the forest in seconds. A bison could trample a man under its hooves. A mammoth could kill with a single strike. To hunt meant danger, and danger was everywhere. The hunters gathered at the edge of camp, spears tipped with sharpened stone, bodies wrapped in furs, faces painted with ash or earth. They moved as one, silent, patient, watching the wind so their scent would not betray them. Sometimes the strategy was simple: driving animals toward a cliff or into a swamp where escape was impossible. Other times it was more cunning, circling quietly, moving in patterns that forced prey into the waiting spears of hidden hunters. Teamwork was not optional. It was essential. Without cooperation, the hunt failed, and the tribe went hungry. But even with skill, not every hunt succeeded. A single misstep could scatter a herd. A predator could appear, stealing the kill. Or worse, a hunter could be injured, a broken bone, a deep cut. These wounds were often fatal, for there were no hospitals, no medicine beyond herbs, no surgeons to mend shattered limbs. Every hunt was a gamble. Yet when the hunt succeeded, it was a celebration. The tribe gathered as the animal was brought down. Knives of stone cut deep. Hides were stripped to be made into clothing or shelter. Meat was divided carefully, nothing wasted. Bones became tools. Sinew became thread. Fat became fuel for fire. From one animal, the tribe gained life for many days. If hunting was dangerous, gathering was no less important. Women, children, and elders often searched for food close to camp, bending low to pick berries, digging carefully for roots, carrying baskets filled with nuts and leaves. They knew which plants healed and which poisoned, which mushrooms could be eaten, which bark could ease pain. The knowledge of plants was as valuable as the spear. For when animals were scarce, the earth itself fed the people. Roots roasted over fire, berries crushed into paste, nuts ground into flour. This was the steady rhythm of survival. Hunting gave feasts, gathering gave consistency. Water was another daily task. Streams and rivers were lifelines, not only for drinking, but for fish, reeds, and clay. Children learned early how to collect water in skins or shells, how to follow the tracks of animals to find hidden springs. In dry seasons, this knowledge meant life or death. Shelter was simple but vital. In warm lands, branches and leaves formed huts. In colder places, hides stretched over wooden frames became tents. In the far north, bones of mammoths supported huts covered in thick furs. Each shelter was temporary, easy to build, easy to abandon when the tribe moved on. Inside, families gathered close, parents teaching children, elders passing on stories, fires burning low but steady. The shelters were small, but they carried warmth, love, and survival within them. Clothing, too, was part of daily life. Animal hides scraped clean with stone tools, softened with fat and marrow, stitched together with bone needles and sinew thread. In summer, clothing was light, just enough to cover and protect. In winter, it was layered, thick, and heavy, wrapping the body in precious warmth. Every stitch told a story of effort, of skill, of patience. Danger was constant, not only from hunger, but from predators. A child wandering too far from camp could fall prey to wolves. A hunter separated from his group could face lions or bears alone. Even insects carried risks, spreading disease with their bites. The world was never safe, never still. Survival was always fragile. And yet, life was not only struggle. There were moments of joy. A successful hunt meant feasting, laughter, and relief. Children played with sticks, imitating the hunters. Families sang songs as they worked hides or gathered plants. Around the fire, stories were told that carried wisdom and hope. The Stone Age was harsh, but it was also deeply human. For even then, love existed. Families protected one another. Parents risked everything for their children. Tribes shared food and warmth, knowing that together they stood stronger than alone. Seasons dictated the rhythm of life. In spring, rivers swelled and plants grew. In summer, the land was generous. In autumn, food was gathered and stored as much as possible. In winter, the world became a test of endurance. Freezing winds, long nights, scarce food. But with fire, with tools, with unity, humans endured. Every day began with hunger. And every night ended with stories. Around the fire, voices rose, carrying lessons for the young. Never stray too far from the tribe. Always respect the animals you hunt. Share what you have, for tomorrow you may have nothing. These stories were more than words. They were the guidebook of survival. When we imagine the Stone Age, we often see the danger, the struggle, the violence of the hunt, but woven into those harsh days was also tenderness. A mother teaching her child which berries to pick. A father shaping a spear for his son. Friends laughing around a fire after a hard journey. These moments, though small, were the heart of life. Day after day, season after season, year after year, humans endured by hunting, building, sharing. This was their world, a cycle as old as time, a cycle that carried them through the harshest age the earth had ever known. If tools were the hands of survival, and fire was the heart, then the tribe itself was the soul of the Stone Age. Humans alone were fragile. A single person, armed with only a spear, could not survive for long. A lone hunter might fall to a lion, starve when the hunt failed, or freeze in the cold nights. But together, humans became something more, a force greater than the sum of their parts. Life in the Stone Age was built around the tribe, a small community, often no larger than 20, 30, maybe 40 people at most. Several families living, moving, and surviving as one. Each person had a role, and every role mattered. Hunters set out in groups to track and kill game. Gatherers scoured the land for plants, fruits, and roots. Firekeepers tended the flames, ensuring they never died. Toolmakers shaped stone into weapons and scrapers. Elders shared wisdom, teaching the lessons of survival. Children learned by watching, by imitating, by practicing with small tools and short hunts. The tribe was like a body. Hunters were its arms, gatherers its stomach, fire its heartbeat, elders its memory, and children its future. Sharing was not a choice. It was a necessity. When one hunter killed a deer, the whole tribe ate. When one family found berries, the baskets were emptied into a common pile. No one hoarded food, because everyone knew that tomorrow it might be their turn to depend on others. This constant sharing built bonds stronger than stone, bonds of trust, of loyalty, of kinship, not only by blood, but by survival. The tribe became an extended family, united by the common struggle against nature. Within the tribe, leadership often arose naturally, not through crowns or thrones, but through wisdom and respect. A skilled hunter might guide the hunt. An elder might speak for the group in times of decision. A mother might be honored for her knowledge of healing plants. Leadership shifted with the needs of the moment, for survival demanded flexibility. But survival was not just about food and shelter. It was also about protection. The tribe was a shield. When predators threatened, hunters formed a wall with their spears. When illness struck, others cared for the sick, bringing water, food, and warmth. When injury left a hunter unable to walk, the tribe slowed its pace, carried him on hides stretched between poles, because leaving someone behind was unthinkable. There was strength in numbers. A pack of wolves might stalk a single human, but a group of hunters with fire and spears could drive them away. A lone family might struggle through winter, but a united tribe could pool food, hides, and labor. Alone, humans were prey. Together, they were predators, survivors, builders of a future. Around the fire, bonds were strengthened even more. Here, people became more than just survivors. They became storytellers, teachers, dreamers. The firelight flickered against faces as elders spoke of ancient hunts, of dangerous animals, of lessons learned long ago. Children listened wide-eyed, the stories etching themselves into memory. Not just entertainment, but education. A story of a hunter who strayed too far alone was a warning. A tale of generosity was a lesson in unity. Songs echoed in the night, simple rhythms carried on voices and drums. Clapping, chanting, the pounding of stones against hollow logs. Music gave joy, lifted spirits, and created a sense of togetherness. Even in hardship, voices rose in harmony. Sometimes, rituals bound the tribe together, perhaps before a hunt. They painted their bodies with ash and ochre, asking the spirits for success. Perhaps after a successful kill, they sang and danced, honoring the animal they had taken. These rituals gave meaning to survival, turning the harsh struggle into something sacred. Every member of the tribe was valuable. The old, though weaker, carried wisdom. The young, though inexperienced, carried hope. Mothers nurtured the next generation. Fathers taught skills of survival. And even the smallest children had purpose. Their laughter, a reminder of why the tribe endured. Disagreements surely happened, but survival forced resolution. Anger could not linger when food needed to be shared. Jealousy could not fester when the tribe depended on unity. Life was too fragile to waste on division. The group had to stay strong, for the world around them was always waiting to exploit weakness. The tribe was more than shelter against danger. It was also a source of identity. Within the group, humans found belonging. They knew they were not alone. They knew they had a place, a role, a purpose. Without the tribe, they were nothing. With it, they were everything. Imagine a winter storm howling outside a cave, snow piling against the entrance, winds screaming through the night. Inside, the fire glows. Children huddle together under firs. Elders speak softly, telling stories of the sun's return. Hunters repair their spears, scraping edges sharper with stone. Mothers soothe infants with gentle hums. In that moment, the tribe is more than just a group of survivors. It is warmth against the cold, light against the darkness, hope against despair. Even in death, the tribe remained united. When one member passed, the group mourned together. Some buried their dead with care, placing tools or ornaments beside the body. Gestures of respect, perhaps belief in an afterlife. Others left the body to the earth, returning it to the cycle of nature. However it was done, the act was not empty. It was love, memory, and honor. The strength of the tribe was not only in numbers, but in spirit, a bond invisible yet unbreakable, forged by struggle, by sacrifice, by the simple knowledge that without one another, they could not survive. And so, day after day, night after night, the tribe endured, eating together, working together, grieving together, celebrating together. They were the first communities, the first families beyond blood, the first nations of humanity. Without tribes, humanity would not have survived the Stone Age. It was not the spear alone that saved them, not the fire alone, not even the sharpness of stone. It was the bond of people, standing side by side, facing the endless dangers of the world and choosing again and again to endure together. Survival in the Stone Age was about food, shelter, safety. But humans were never content with survival alone. Even in the hardest days, they dreamed, they created, they sought meaning beyond the hunt and the fire. Deep within caves, far from the light of the sun, they painted on rough stone walls with pigments made from charcoal, ochre, and ground minerals. They drew the world around them, herds of bison charging across the walls, horses with flowing manes, mammoths with sweeping tusks, hunters with spears raised high. The flickering firelight made the paintings move. Shadows danced across the walls, giving the illusion of running animals. Perhaps the paintings were teaching tools, showing young hunters how prey looked and moved. Perhaps they were part of rituals, prayers for a successful hunt. Or perhaps they were simply art, a need to express, to create beauty even in a world of struggle. Whatever their purpose, the paintings told stories. They said, "We were here, we saw, we remembered," and through those stories, they gave humans something more powerful than tools. They gave them identity. Art was not limited to caves. Bones and stones were carved into figurines, small shapes of humans or animals. Some emphasized fertility, wide hips, round forms, symbols of life and birth. Others seemed to honor animals, blending respect with fear. These carvings may have been amulets, charms, or sacred objects, carried in pouches or placed near the fire. Music, too, was born in the Stone Age. Hollow bird bones shaped into flutes, drums made from stretched hides, rattles filled with seeds. Around the fire, voices rose in song, rhythmic, simple, but powerful. A heartbeat of the tribe, binding them together. The beat of drums echoed the rhythm of footsteps in the hunt. The rise and fall of voices carried the emotions of fear, joy, and hope. Storytelling was perhaps the greatest art of all. Before there were books, before writing, there were voices, elders telling of the hunts long past, of heroes who faced beasts, of mistakes that taught harsh lessons. These stories were more than entertainment. They were survival manuals, warning of dangers, teaching strategies, reminding the tribe of who they were. Children listened wide-eyed, committing the lessons to memory, passing them on when their time came. In this way, culture flowed like a river from one generation to the next. Belief also took root in these early days. For humans did not only see the physical world, they sensed something more. When they looked at the sky, filled with stars, they wondered. When they saw the power of fire, they felt awe. When they buried their dead, they left gifts. Food, tools, ornaments, perhaps believing that life did not end in the grave. The spirits of animals may have been honored. A hunter who killed a bison might leave an offering, thanking its spirit. A tribe that depended on mammoths may have carved their likeness into stone, not only as art, but as reverence. Belief turned survival into ritual. It gave order to chaos, purpose to suffering. Even death was marked with care. Some bodies were laid to rest in caves, sprinkled with red ochre, a color of life and blood. Some were buried with tools, as if the journey continued beyond the earth. These acts show something profound. Even in a time of constant struggle, humans looked beyond survival. They imagined worlds unseen. Jewelry, too, appeared. Beads made from shells, bones, and teeth, strung on sinew, worn around the neck or wrist. These ornaments were more than decoration. They may have marked status, skill, or connection to the sacred. They spoke of a desire to be more than naked survivors in hides. They spoke of beauty, pride, and meaning. Imagine the scene. Night has fallen. The tribe gathers in a cave. A fire burns at the center, its smoke curling upward. On the walls, painted animals seem to run in the flickering light. A drum beats slowly. Voices rise in chant. A shaman, the spiritual guide, lifts a carved figure of an animal. He speaks words, half prayer, half story. The tribe listens, eyes wide, hearts beating together. In that moment, survival becomes ceremony. Life becomes sacred. This culture, this art, music, and belief was more than decoration for human life. It was survival in its own way. For culture bound the tribe together, gave them strength in the face of hardship, gave them reasons to endure. A hunter risked his life not only for food, but for the tribe's honor. A mother sang to her child not only to soothe it, but to pass on language, rhythm, belonging. An elder told stories not only to entertain, but to keep memory alive. The world outside was cruel. Storms, predators, hunger. But within the firelight, humans created another world. One of imagination, of hope, of connection. And this is what truly separated humans from the animals around them. Not just tools, not just fire, but the ability to see beyond the moment, to imagine, to dream, to believe. Even today, when we find the paintings on cave walls, tens of thousands of years old, when we hold the carved figurines worn smooth by ancient hands, we feel their presence. Their voices echo through time, whispering that even in the harshest age, humans were never only surviving. They were living, creating, believing. Art and belief did not fill the stomach. They did not stop a predator's claws, but they gave strength to the spirit. And sometimes, spirit was the difference between giving up and going on. The earth grew colder. Ice spread across continents. Vast glaciers, taller than mountains, advanced slowly but relentlessly, reshaping the land. Rivers froze. Forests withered. Animals migrated or vanished. This was the Ice Age, and for humans, survival became harder than ever. Imagine endless plains of snow and ice, winds so cold they cut through fur and skin like knives, nights so long that darkness seemed eternal. For tribes living in the north, this was reality. And yet, they endured. The first challenge was warmth. Fire was no longer just helpful, it was essential. Without it, no one could live through the frozen nights. Tribes gathered every scrap of wood they could find. Bones of animals were burned when wood ran out. Dung from mammoths and bison, dried in the sun, became fuel for fire. The flames never stopped, for if they did, death would come swiftly. Clothing grew heavier, thicker. Animal hides were layered, sewn with sinew, lined with fur. Boots made from skin and stuffed with grass kept feet from freezing. Hooded cloaks shielded faces from the biting wind. Every stitch was survival. Every layer a barrier between fragile flesh and the deadly cold. Shelters, too, became stronger. In the north, some tribes built huts from mammoth bones, covered with hides. Others dug into the earth, creating pit houses insulated with branches and snow. Caves became sanctuaries, their entrances blocked with hides to trap heat inside. Within these shelters, firelight glowed, smoke rose, and humans huddled together, breathing warmth into the frozen air. Food was scarcer. Herds of mammoths, reindeer, and bison roamed the icy plains, but they were dangerous to hunt. Success meant life. Failure meant hunger and death. Hunters traveled farther, braving blizzards and snowfields, following the tracks of prey across the frozen land. A single mammoth could feed a tribe for weeks, but killing one was no easy task. Spears had to be thrown with precision. Hunters risked being crushed underfoot or impaled by tusks. Some tribes used strategy, driving the beasts toward traps or cliffs. Others surrounded them, attacking from all sides, relying on fire and noise to confuse them. Every hunt was a battle between fragile humans and giants of the Ice Age. When the hunts failed, gathering became vital. Roots buried beneath frozen soil, berries preserved from autumn, nuts stored carefully in woven baskets, fish caught from icy rivers with bone hooks or spears. Nothing was wasted. Every scrap of food was precious. Starvation was a constant shadow. Children cried from hunger. Elders gave their portions to the young. In the worst winters, some tribes were forced to leave the weakest behind. Hard choices carved deep scars into the hearts of survivors. Yet still, they went on. Predators thrived in the Ice Age as well. Saber-toothed cats hunted the same prey humans sought. Cave lions stalked the snow. Packs of wolves followed mammoth herds, waiting for weakness. To face them, humans relied on fire, spears, and above all, unity. A single hunter could fall easily, but a group standing firm, torches blazing, could drive even the fiercest predator away. Despite the hardships, the Ice Age shaped humanity into something stronger, sharper, more resilient. Those who survived learned new ways of living. They perfected their tools. Stone blades grew finer, sharper, more efficient. Spears became lighter, easier to throw. The atlatl, a spear thrower, gave hunters the power to hurl weapons farther and harder than before. This innovation changed the hunt, making it possible to strike from a safer distance. In time, bows and arrows appeared, a leap forward that forever altered the balance. With them, humans no longer had to approach dangerous beasts so closely. A well-aimed arrow could pierce hide and flesh from afar, reducing the risks of the hunt. The Ice Age also taught humans to plan ahead. Food was stored when possible. Meat was smoked or dried to last through the barren months. Fat was rendered into fuel. Skins were cured and saved for clothing. Bones were kept for tools. Nothing could be wasted. Nothing could be taken for granted. Migration became a way of survival. When the land grew empty, when herds moved on, when rivers froze solid, humans followed. They walked across frozen plains, crossed icy rivers, climbed mountains in search of food and safety. Some even crossed into new lands entirely. The Ice Age opened paths across frozen seas and land bridges, carrying humans to places they had never been before. Imagine a small group of people, bundled in heavy furs, trudging across a snowy expanse. The wind howls, carrying ice that stings their faces. Their feet sink into snow with every step. Behind them, smoke rises from the camp they abandoned. Ahead of them, uncertainty waits. Yet they keep walking. Children carried on shoulders, tools strapped to their backs, fire bundled carefully in smoldering embers. They move forward because standing still means death. It was not only the cold and hunger that threatened them, but isolation. The endless white could break the spirit. Yet around the fire, songs still rose. Stories were still told. Paintings still appeared on cave walls, even in the deepest winters. Humans refused to let the cold take their imagination, their hope, their humanity. The Ice Age tested every limit, and in testing them, it shaped the humans who would one day rule the earth. It demanded endurance, and humanity delivered. It demanded invention, and humanity created. It demanded unity, and humanity held together. When the glaciers finally began to retreat, when the ice melted and the earth warmed, humans emerged stronger than ever. They had endured storms, predators, and hunger. They had crossed frozen lands and settled new territories. They had learned to master fire, to shape stone, to craft clothing and shelter that defied the cold. The Ice Age had not destroyed them. It had forged them. And from that forging, humanity carried forward the strength to face whatever came next. The Ice Age may have been harsh, but it was also a bridge. Ice locked oceans and lowered sea levels. Paths that had once been hidden beneath waves were revealed, and through these frozen highways, humans began one of the greatest journeys in history. Step by step, tribe by tribe, they moved from the heart of Africa, where humanity had first taken shape. They spread outward into the Middle East, across Europe, into Asia, following rivers, herds, and seasons. They carried with them fire, tools, and memory. Some followed the mammoths and reindeer into the cold northern plains. Others journeyed east, reaching vast new lands. Eventually, groups crossed into places no human had seen before. Siberia's frozen tundra, the Americas through a land bridge now buried beneath the Bering Sea, islands scattered across the seas, reached by simple rafts and dugout canoes. Humanity was not confined to one land. They became wanderers of the world. Every migration was a risk, The land ahead was unknown. Rivers might block the way. Predators might lurk in the forests. Storms might destroy what little the tribe carried. Yet they pressed on, because hunger demanded it, because curiosity pulled them forward, because survival depended on finding new lands when old ones grew empty. Imagine a group of families moving slowly across a wide plain. Children carried in hides strapped to their mothers' backs, hunters walking ahead, spears in hand, elders trailing behind, steady but determined. Fires smoldering in bundles, carried carefully so that the flame never died. They walked for days, weeks, sometimes months, each step carrying them farther from the lands of their ancestors. At night, they made camp. Fires lit against the dark, meat roasted, stories told. Some looked back, remembering the lands they had left. Others looked forward, wondering what waited ahead. The horizon was both promise and danger, but they kept moving. New lands brought new challenges. In dense forests, hunting was different. No longer wide plains where mammoths roamed, but tangled trees filled with deer, boar, and birds. In deserts, water was scarce, and survival meant knowing where to dig, when to travel, and how to endure the heat. Along coasts, humans learned to fish, crafting hooks from bone, nets from plant fibers, rafts from logs tied together. Every environment demanded adaptation. In the snowy north, heavy furs became armor against the cold. In the tropics, lighter clothing and shelters were enough. In grasslands, tribes followed herds across the endless plains. In forests, they learned the secrets of plants, roots, and fruits. Humanity was like water, flowing into every space the earth offered, reshaping itself to fit. Migration also brought encounters. Not every tribe lived in isolation. As groups spread, they crossed paths. Sometimes they shared, trading knowledge, tools, food. Other times they fought, competing for land, for herds, for survival. These encounters shaped the course of history. Tribes rising and falling, uniting and dividing, forever changing as they moved across the earth. But migration did more than spread humans. It spread ideas. A tool shaped in one place was carried to another. A new method of hunting traveled with those who knew it. A story born in one cave could echo in another, far away. Humanity was not just moving bodies across the land. It was moving culture, memory, and invention. Some migrations lasted generations. A tribe might settle for years, building shelters, raising children, burying their dead. Then, as the land grew empty or the climate shifted, they moved again. The children who had grown up there now carried the fire onward, leading their own families into the unknown. Each migration was not a single journey, but a chain of journeys, stretching across centuries, across continents. Consider the courage it took to leave behind the known, the familiar, to walk into lands of strange animals, strange plants, strange skies, to risk death at every turn, and yet to continue. This courage was not born of choice, but of necessity, for in the Stone Age, to stay still was often to starve. Over time, humanity painted the world with its footsteps. They filled valleys and mountains, rivers and coasts. They learned the shape of every land, the rhythm of every season. They became not just survivors of Africa, but citizens of the world. And in their migrations, they discovered diversity. Some lived where snow never melted, others where the sun never cooled. Some hunted mammoths, others fished in turquoise seas. Some painted bison on cave walls, others carved idols of bone and wood. Humanity became many things, but everywhere they were still bound by the same need to survive. What migration gave humanity was resilience. By spreading far and wide, they reduced the risk of extinction. If one tribe perished in famine, another might thrive elsewhere. If one valley grew empty, another river might provide abundance. Humanity became a web stretched across the earth, each strand holding together the future of the species. And even though they spread so far apart, they shared something invisible but powerful. Fire glowing in every camp, tools of stone in every hand, stories whispered in every night. Though separated by oceans and mountains, they were still one people, shaped by the same struggle. The great journey of migration was not fast. It took tens of thousands of years. But with every step, humanity grew stronger, more adaptable, more prepared for the future. The earth was vast, but slowly, step by step, humans claimed it. When we look back now, at footprints fossilized in ancient mud, at tools buried in lands far from Africa, at bones resting in caves thousands of miles apart, we see the evidence of that journey. We see courage, persistence, the unyielding will to endure. Migration was not just movement, it was survival. It was expansion. It was the moment humanity transformed from a fragile tribe in one land into a species that could endure anywhere. For countless generations, humans wandered, hunting, gathering, moving with the seasons. Their lives were shaped by the rhythm of animals and plants, by the hunt and the harvest of the wild. But slowly, something began to change. Somewhere in the fertile valleys of the world, humans noticed patterns. They saw that seeds dropped into the soil sprouted again the next season. They saw that if they tended these patches of wild plants, the yield was greater. They learned that animals could be tamed, guided, and bred, not only hunted. This was the beginning of farming, and with it, the end of the Stone Age. At first, it was small. A tribe might scatter seeds near their camp, returning months later to find edible plants growing. They may have begun by replanting the best grains, or by keeping young animals alive instead of killing them. Step by step, the knowledge grew, until humans realized that they no longer had to follow the herds. They could bring food to themselves. This discovery changed everything. No longer bound to constant migration, humans began to stay in one place longer. Camps became villages. Temporary shelters became permanent homes. Fire pits turned into hearths. And the first signs of settled life appeared. The land itself was transformed. Fields of wheat and barley grew where once there had been only wild grass. Goats, sheep, and cattle grazed in enclosures instead of roaming freely. Dogs, once wild hunters at the edges of camps, became partners, protectors, and companions. For the first time, humans shaped nature not only to survive it, but to control it. Life was still hard. Farming meant long days of labor, bending, planting, harvesting. Animals needed care, shelter needed repair, but the reward was steady food, predictable harvests, less risk of famine. And with this stability came growth. More food meant more people. More people meant larger groups, larger villages, stronger tribes. With settlements came change in every aspect of life. Tools evolved. Stone blades were reshaped into sickles for cutting grain. Mortars and pestles ground seeds into flour. Grinding stones became as important as spears once had been. Pottery was born. Clay shaped and fired in flames, holding water, storing food, cooking stews. With pottery, humans could preserve the harvest, plan for tomorrow, survive the lean seasons. The tribe itself changed. Roles expanded beyond hunter and gatherer. Some became farmers, tending crops. Some became herders, guiding animals. Some became potters, toolmakers, builders. Others became leaders, organizing the growing community. For the first time, humans had true specialization. A division of labor that went beyond survival into society. Beliefs shifted too. As humans depended on the cycles of the land, they turned their eyes to the skies. They watched the sun, the moon, the stars, marking the seasons, learning when to plant and when to harvest. They created rituals to honor the earth, the rain, the fertility of crops and animals. Gods of sky and soil replaced the spirits of the hunt. Shrines and sacred sites appeared, places where people gathered not just to eat, but to worship. Villages grew near rivers and fertile plains. Life became more secure, but also more complex. With more people came disputes, rules, and agreements. The beginnings of law and order, the beginnings of leadership, not only in the hunt, but in daily life. And yet, even in this new world, echoes of the old remained. Hunters still set out into the forests. Gatherers still collected herbs and wild plants. The fire still burned at the heart of every home. The stories, songs, and art continued, binding the people together. But step by step, the nomadic life that had defined humanity for millennia gave way to something new. This transition did not happen all at once. Some tribes embraced farming quickly, building permanent villages, raising herds, storing food. Others remained nomadic, following herds and rivers, hunting and gathering as they always had. For thousands of years, both ways of life existed side by side, but farming spread slowly but surely across the world. The Stone Age was ending. The age of settled life was beginning. And with it came the seeds of the future: towns, cities, civilizations. The walls of caves gave way to walls of mud, brick, and stone. paintings of bison and mammoths gave way to symbols carved into tablets, the earliest writing. The small fire of the tribe became the hearth of the household, and eventually, the great fires of temples and cities. It is easy to look back and see the Stone Age as primitive. But without it, none of what followed could exist. In the harsh crucible of survival, humans had forged the tools, the fire, the cooperation, the imagination that would carry them forward. They had survived predators, storms, famine, ice. They had crossed continents, painted their stories on cave walls, sung songs to the rhythm of drums, and buried their dead with care. And when the time came to leave behind the old ways, they did so with the strength the Stone Age had given them. The Stone Age was not simply an age of stone. It was the age where humans became human, the age where they learned to endure, to dream, to create, and to hope. It was the foundation upon which every empire, every invention, every idea of the future was built. The end of the Stone Age was not the end of survival. It was the beginning of something greater, a step from the endless struggle of day to day toward the building of tomorrow. And so, when we ask, how did humans survive during the Stone Age? The answer is simple. They survived by adapting, by cooperating, by creating, by believing. They survived by never giving up. And because they endured, we are here today.